Good evening. Welcome to the Town Hall. Having reached the hour of 6, I'll call to order the meeting of the Sahuarita Town Council, and also, as always, inform everyone that tonight's meeting will be broadcast live. Tonight we'll begin with our regular meeting. After the pledge, I will recess the regular meeting to conduct the Community Facilities District meetings. Immediately following the CFD meetings, I'll reconvene the regular meeting. Tonight's invocation will be given by Chief Chuck Wonder of the Green Valley District, soon to be the Santa Rita Fire District, and in 7 days, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by James Troutwine II, a fourth grade student at Wrightson Ridge, and who's very excited about doing the pledge tonight. Right, James? Chief?
You'll do great.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. If you'll join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight in gratitude for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon us and this great town. We thank you for this council and the work they do to improve our community. We thank you for the town staff who work to carry out the direction of the council with pride and professionalism. And Lord, we thank you for our community who make this such an amazing place to live and work. Lord, we ask your continued guidance, wisdom, and clarity for this council and town leadership as they work through the business of not only tonight, but the business that lies in front of them. We ask that the actions that they take be honoring to you, and that these decisions continue to be fair, just, and in the best interest of our citizens. As always, Lord, I pray for the first responders and military throughout the world. Please keep them safe and protect and bless their families while they serve. I ask a special hedge of protection for the more than 7,000 firefighters and support personnel deployed around the United States managing wildfires as we speak. Finally, Lord, as I close, I ask a special blessing for Commander Aldrin and his family as they prepare for this new journey you've called them to. As he retires from the street of police, may him and his family draw strength from the friends and memories that they leave behind, and may you lift them up, encourage them, and continue to bless them as they move on to their next adventure. In your son's name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, Chief.
Yeah, absolutely.
James, right up to the podium there.
Got that?
You have
There
a
you go.
chief of the fire department right there, right?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You gonna come back tomorrow and do it for me again? I'll hereby suspend our town council meeting and commence with our Rancho Sahuarita Community Facilities District. I'll call that meeting to order, and Madam Clerk, may I have a roll?
Board Member Bracco, absent. Board Member Davis.
Here.
Board Member Gillespie.
Here.
Board Member Morales. Here. Board Member Priolo. Here. Vice Chairperson Egbert. Here. Chairperson Murphy.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. And next is the call to the public for the Rancho Sahuarita Communities Facilities District, not for our town council meeting. At this time, any member of the public is invited to address the district board on any issue which is on tonight's consent agenda or any issue which the district board can lawfully act upon in a future meeting pursuant to Arizona open meeting laws. The district board may not discuss items, but individual members of the district board may respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the district board, may ask staff to review the matter, may ask the matter be placed on a future agenda item. Would anybody like to address the Rancho Sahuarita Community Facilities District Board? Seeing no movement, I will close the call to the public and move to item number 4, which is our consent agenda, and entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now we move to item number 3. Madam Clerk.
Item number 5, public
excuse
hearing,
me, 5.
discussion, and possible adoption of resolution number 2024-0031 of the District Board of the Rancho Sahuarita Community Facilities District, a community facilities district of Arizona, approving a final budget for fiscal year 2025 in the amount of $17,408,770 pursuant to section 48716 Arizona Revised Statutes as amended. Ordering that an ad valorem tax be fixed, levied, and assessed on the assessed value of all the real and personal property within the district. Boundaries of the district and amounts specified in the filed statements and estimates, providing for certified copies of this resolution in order to be delivered to the Pima County Board of Supervisors and the Arizona Department of Revenue, and providing that this resolution shall be effective after its passage and approved according to law.
Thank you. Mr. Mariotti, our district treasurer, will present this item, and he'll be very busy tonight. He has 2 CFDs and the public hearing for our budget. So, Mr. Mariotti, welcome. Oh, Mike.
Apologize for that.
There you
Mr.
go.
Chairman, members of the board, thank you very much. Tonight, you'll have an opportunity to adopt the final budget for the Rancho Cerrito Community Facilities District. This is the potentially the last in a series of these meetings, and as such, tonight's presentation will be more abbreviated than those previous. After holding a public hearing, which was advertised in accordance with state law, then you'll have that opportunity to adopt the budget. So the budget program is $17,408,770. This is the same as the tentative budget that you adopted 2 weeks ago. This is lower than the current year budget by $843,000, which is a 5% reduction from the current fiscal year. The budget is balanced in that our financing sources are equivalent to financing uses. 89% of the district's resources come from beginning fund balances. That would represent unspent money from the current fiscal year that rolls forward to next fiscal year. And the vast majority of that is represented by unspent bond proceeds. 11% of the district's resources comes from revenues, which would include developer contributions, investment income, and property taxes. And those property taxes mostly go to pay off debt service. The property tax rate will be $4.99 per $100 of net taxable assessed valuation, and that's the same tax rate as the current fiscal year, and actually it's the same tax rate that was established when bonds were issued many years ago, I think in 2018. So this is a pie chart of how the district intends to use its money. So it will spend $15.5 million acquiring roads and sewer lines from the master developer, and that will be funded from the previously issued GO bonds I referred to. $1.9 million will be spent making principal and interest payments on our debt, and $53,000 will be spent on operations. You'll notice that there are no ending fund balances in this district, and that's because it will consume all of its resources over the course of the year. So the final steps would be to hold the public hearing, at which point the board will have an opportunity to make changes or other reductions to the budget. And then you'll have an opportunity to adopt the resolution that's before you, which would adopt the fiscal year 2025 budget and also establish the property tax rate and the property tax levy at the rates that I mentioned earlier. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Before I open the public hearing, does anybody have any questions? I know this is the third or fourth time we've heard this, so we should be good. If not, at this time, I'll open the public hearing. Would anybody like to address the district board on the Rancho Cerrito CFD? Seeing no movement, I will close the public hearing, and at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to adopt Resolution 2024-0031.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Having no more further business for the Rancho Cerrito Community Facilities District, I'll adjourn that meeting, and now I'll commence with the Quail Creek Community Facilities District meeting. And Madam Clerk, may I have a roll?
Board Member Bracco, absent. Board Member Davis.
Still here.
Board Member Gillespie.
Here.
Board Member Morales. Here. Board Member Priolo. Here. Vice Chairperson Egbert.
Here.
Chairperson Murphy.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. Now we move to item 3, call to the public. At this time, any member of the public is invited to address the district board on any issue which is on tonight's consent agenda, any issue which the district board can lawfully act upon. At a future meeting, pursuant to Arizona open meeting laws, the district board may not discuss the items, but individual members of the district board may respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the district board and may ask the staff to review the matter or may ask the matter to be placed on a future agenda. I don't have any cards for the Quail Creek Community Facilities District. Anybody like to address the district board? Seeing no movement, I will close the call to the public and move to item number 4, our consent agenda, and entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And now we come to item number 5, Madam Clerk.
Public hearing, discussion, and possible adoption of Resolution Number 48 of the District Board of the Quail Creek Community Facilities District, a community facilities district of Arizona, approving a final budget for fiscal year 2025 in the amount of $1,104,650 pursuant to Section 48716 of the Arizona Revised Statutes as amended. Ordering that an ad valorem tax be fixed, levied, and assessed on the assessed value of all the real and personal property within the boundaries of the district in amounts specified in the filed statements and estimates, providing for certified copies of this resolution in order to be delivered to the Pima County Board of Supervisors and the Arizona Department of Revenue, and providing that this resolution shall be effective after its passage and approval according to law.
Thank you. And Mr. Mariotti, he is so awesome. He's the district treasurer for the Quail Creek Community Facilities District. Good evening once again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So after holding a public hearing tonight, the board will have an opportunity to adopt the fiscal year 2025 budget. So the budget for the Quail Creek Community Facilities District is programmed at $1,104,650. This is the same as the tentative budget that you adopted 2 weeks ago. This amount is higher than the current year budget by $22,000, and that's a 2% increase over the current year. The budget is balanced in that our financing sources are equivalent to our financing uses. So 95% of the district's resources come from property taxes, and most of that goes to pay off debt. The property tax rate will be $2.40 per $100 of net taxable assessed valuation, and that's lower than the current tax rate by 28 cents. So that's a 10% reduction in the tax rate. All things being equal, the average homeowner is going to save about $47 a year as a result of this reduced tax rate. You'll notice that there are no developer contributions on the sources pie chart here, and that's because the district's tax collections are sufficient to pay for its debt service. So the district will spend $957,000 making principal and interest payments on its long-term debt. $147,000 will be spent on operations. And here again, you'll notice that there are no ending fund balances as the district is expected to consume all of its resources in the fiscal year. So for final steps, we will hold a public hearing, at which point the board will have an opportunity to make changes or other reductions to the budget. Then the board will have an opportunity to adopt the resolution that's before you, which would adopt the 2025 budget and establish the property tax rate at the aforementioned levy amount. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And just to touch on AC for the public, I know the answer to this, but the tax rate is going down for the Quail Creek one. Can you just touch on why that's happening at this particular time?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. The tax rate will continue to go down as long as the assessed valuations of all the property in the district goes up. So debt service, like your mortgage payment, is kind of a fixed amount each year. It's not quite fixed, but it's pretty close to being fixed each year. So as assessed valuations go up, it drives the tax rate down.
Thanks, appreciate that. Any other questions before I open the public hearing? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing for the Quail Creek Community Facilities District. Would anybody like to address the board? And I'm assuming that, Nathan, your movement is not to address the board, right? Okay. Seeing no other movement, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion at this time.
Miss-
Mr. Mayor.
You
Oh, are you ready? Go.
Oh, there you go.
So, Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt Resolution Number 48 of the District Board of the Quail Creek Community Facilities District.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Having no more further business for the Quail Creek Community Facilities District, I'll adjourn that meeting and now return to our regular meeting. And Madam Clerk, may I have a roll?
Councilmember Bracco, absent. Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Gillespie.
Here.
Councilmember Morales. Councilmember Priolo.
Here.
Vice Mayor Egbert.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. And tonight, we have multiple outgoing board and commission members, so we wanted to thank them for their years of service. So at this time, if Anna Cassidy, our building director, and Devin Stalder, our Parks and Rec director, join me at the podium, please.
Thank you, Mayor Murphy, members of the council. Boards and commissions are an essential component to the functioning of the town and are entirely volunteer groups. We as a town could not do what we do without the time, commitment, and knowledge of our board and commission members. Our outgoing Planning and Zoning Commission members graciously took on a heavy lift preparing to hear one of the most controversial land use cases that this town has seen in its history, along with the more typical cases that we see on a day-to-day basis. For their commitment to the appropriate growth of the town and fairness to process, we would like to recognize John Backer. If you'd like to come on up, Mr. Backer. Mr. Backer served from 2016 to 2024 and most recently as chair.
Get in here with us for the picture.
Sure.
Oh, wait, you're no. I'm not getting anymore. Thanks.
Mickey Miramontes, who served from 2018 to 2024, most recently as vice chair. Our Board of Adjustment meets less frequently but is equally important. Like the Planning and Zoning Commission, this board is required by state law to hear certain types of land use cases. For their dedication and their willingness to be on call to keep our processes moving, we recognize Charles Oldham. I don't believe he's here tonight. He served from 2012 to 2024, most recently as vice chair. Larry Thompson, who is not here tonight, served from 2018 to 2024. Darren Venters served from 2021 to 2024.
Oh, you're welcome, thank you. Oh, my gosh. Another one on the wall. That's right. Thanks.
And lastly, Dennis Rosinski, who is not here tonight, who served from 2022 to 2024. Our Board of Appeals brings a wealth of technical knowledge to decide building code appeals. Though they meet infrequently, and in fact, I think it's been more than 10 years, our Board of Appeals members are some of the longest-serving volunteers in the organization. For their knowledge and commitment to the safety of our residents, staff, and visitors, we recognize John Gallagher. Are you here tonight, Mr. Gallagher? He served from 2010 to 2023. And Chris Monrad, who's not here tonight, he served from 2010 to 2024.
Let's have a hand for those.
Yeah, for sure.
Honorable Mayor, well, you're behind me. Honorable Mayor, members of the council, our Parks and Recreation Commission consists of 7 Town of Sahuarita residents serving our vibrant community. The commission advises the town council and Parks and Recreation Director on matters regarding recreation programs, park design, open space and trails use, budget planning, and other related issues. For their dedication to our parks, open spaces, trails, and programs, we recognize Michelle Ahern, who served from 2017 to 2024, who I believe is not here, and Jeff Aherns, who served from 2019 to 2024. I don't believe he's here as well. So,
Hand for those
yeah.
folks. Sure. If everybody that has gotten an award tonight, can you come up and we'll do a big group picture?
And then, do you want to grab these other ones and we'll just hold them?
Yeah. We'll line up in front of the screen.
Some of those links are really commendable. That's a lot of service. That's amazing.
You centered it up. Thanks again, and the staff will make sure those plaques for the folks that couldn't be here, that we'll do our best to get it to them. And as they said, this is, we work for almost free, you work for all free. So we really appreciate that effort. And you heard by the time frame, some were as long-serving as 2010. So that's 13 years. We're only celebrating our 30th, anniversary. And Charles Oldham was the previous mayor twice, and continued to serve on the commission. So really appreciate everybody's effort, willing to serve. It's what makes our community so wonderful. Next is item number 5, which is call to the public. Call to the public is now open. Individuals may speak for 3 minutes, spokespersons 10. I've been advised by our town attorney that state law prohibits the use of town resources to influence the outcome of an election. This means that we're not allowed to advocate for and against candidates or ballot measures during the call to the public because that could violate the state law. The council may not discuss matters not on the agenda. However, at the end of the call to the public, council members may respond to criticism, request council to review the matter, or add the matter to a future agenda item. And tonight I have 2 speakers, and we'll begin with Mary Mack Chernowski. And I know this is not your first rodeo, but there are 3 lights up there. The green, starting the 3 minutes, yellow means you have a minute left, and the red, as I always mention, opens up a trap door and you disappear. So, and I want to come rescue you. So.
My husband of 52 years might be happy about, no, just kidding. My name is Mary Chernowski. I go by Mac. And do I have to give my address? 200?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because you do at the school board meetings. All right. In 2000, first of all, I want to thank the town council for almost doing things for free. And I want to really say I was tickled pink to see the volunteers get awards tonight. Thank you for your service. I know many of you. In 2022, a group of local educators, a research librarian, and historians wrote a book called Sahuarita, Arizona, Treasured Nuggets from the Past, under the pseudonym of the Friends of Sahuarita. This work took over 6 years and captured primary sources from many sages about the history of Sahuarita, Green Valley, and continental Arizona communities. It was published in December of 2022 and is available on Amazon, and no monies were taken for this project. All the monies support educational endeavors in our Sahuarita schools and students attending the Sahuarita high schools from other schools, from other local schools. In 2023, many of the Friends of Sahuarita, that was our pseudonym for the book, the people that wrote the book, felt the establishment of a Santa Cruz Valley Historical Society was a natural seg from the book. The members of the society felt historical preservation is paramount to the mission and vision statements and to our community. In that vein, there are buildings, locations here in town, along with proposed trails, we're hopeful, right? And educational endeavors on our website, www.santacruzvalleyhistory.org, of historical importance for everyone to peruse, excuse me. So I'm going to leave this book in back. You can take a look at it. Anyone can look at it, just if you want it for informational. I would encourage you to look at our website and hopefully think about a membership in our historical preservation. And in the meantime, I wanted to tell you that we will be doing a formal presentation in the fall. So we hope you will join us in the fall to hear what we're all about and what we're trying to do to better our community and the knowledge about our community. That's it.
Thanks, Mac. Appreciate you being here. Next is Stuart Lisk. Good evening.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor, Madam Deputy Mayor, staff, Council. First off, I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for nominating me for the Board of Adjustments. So if I get approved, I'm looking forward to serving tonight, so thank you. I do have a few items, though, I'd like to discuss, mostly because it's in your mission statement about public safety, and I hope you take this under consideration. The first one is the U-turn sign that's over by the Circle K on the boulevard, the extension there. Well, it's just dangerous. I've seen many times since people are not expecting other people to stop to make the U-turn, slam on the brakes because someone's making a U-turn or go around, and then I see everybody flipping everybody else off, and it's just seems to be dangerous. Here's what I ask. Either enforce it or take them down. I mean, or think about some other mitigation related to the exit, because they're all coming out of Circle K, mostly anyhow, to make that U-turn to get to head in the other direction. So in any event, I just ask staff, if they're the right people, to please look at this, because I do believe it's a dangerous area. The next one is, I'd like to ask you to still consider putting in the left turn line on Old Nogales going into Quail Creek, just as you have on the Sahuarita Boulevard and the South Nogales. It just provides a better turning avenue for those making the left turn and those making a right turn. Again, I've seen it where someone's trying to make a right turn, whether they're supposed to or not, they're making a right turn while someone's making a left turn, and they're out, and the left turn people are going into the right lane, and again, it just causes an issue. If you have the lines there, they tend to stay in it, because I've seen it on the on South Nogales, turning on the Sahuarita. So I hope you consider that. The last one is on the extension on the trail, the walking trail that you have there going from Quail Creek up to South Nogales. I just asked that you consider putting in some sort of a barrier on that, because I've seen many cars, actually my wife and I and my dog, we were walking and a car made a U-turn over the barrier onto the walking path, and then up. And then going back up. I just ask you to please consider those items. Again, as part of your mission, look at it from a public safety perspective. I thank you all for your time.
Thanks, Stuart, appreciate it. That's all the cards I have. Does anybody else like to address the council? Seeing no movement, I will close the call to the public and move to item number 7, Madam Clerk.
Presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding the 2024 legislative session update.
Thank you. And now Nathan Barrett is making movement to the podium. He's our management analyst and will present any updates. I know the budget has been finalized and session has sine-died, and
that is correct, Mr. Mayor. I figured this was a night to discuss budgets. So the first item on my in my presentation tonight is a discussion of the state budget. It was passed on June 15th. Unlike the budget process that this council has been involved in for the last several months, if not longer, this was a budget that no one knew anything about until the last minute, and then it was dropped on the floor, discussed, debated, and passed. What we're looking at is a $16.1 billion budget for the state, and in order to get there, they had to close a $1.4 billion deficit. They did that through canceling a number of projects, through postponing a number of projects. Nearly every state agency is taking a 3.5% haircut, with the exception of public safety agencies, who were spared the haircut.
I think I heard the education wasn't cut as well. Is that
there
right?
was some education stuff that was cut, funding for new school construction, and there was a
Okay.
pot of money that districts used to pay for non-salary items like textbooks and computers. That also took a cut.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so that was the budget. Then the legislature adjourned, but not without some final shenanigans. So that's the second item for my update tonight, are the two last parting bills that the legislature passed right before adjourning. The first is 2080. This deals with council elections and appointed terms. I don't believe it's likely to affect us this year. Though there's always that outside possibility, who knows. What this would do is, and I'm getting a little bit into the weeds here and I may be simplifying things a bit, but if there is a council member who is serving out an appointed term, and I think at the present time that's only Councilmember Gillespie, if they do not win their primary election and somebody else gets a majority in that primary election, then that person who got the majority would be entitled to be seated immediately. And the appointed person would have to step down. So if Councilmember Gillespie loses to a write-in nominee, that might come into play, but it is not likely to happen.
Can I just interject, Mayor? That bill, it wasn't adopted by emergency clause, so it doesn't take effect until September 14. There's some dispute or debate about whether it's retroactive. We take the position it's not retroactive because it doesn't have any language that says it's retroactive. So our position is that it would take effect in the election primary 2 years down the road.
Right, and how did they get over the fact, because I know when they changed the election cycle a few years ago, some of us got extended. I did, I think you did. And the whole theory on it was because you can't take away time that the voters, I guess it's because it's the voters and the voters didn't appoint
That's the
Dr.
difference
Gillespie.
there. And again, it only, as Nathan said, it only applies to those filling a appointed seat, and it's the first council meeting after the canvass is complete. So it wouldn't necessarily be immediate, but assuming you have a canvass.
Well, the canvass doesn't usually, is there two canvasses for the primary and the general?
There's
or
one
is
for
it-
each.
Oh, there is
So
one
I think
for
it's
each.
August 12 is tentatively set for a canvass.
That is correct.
So in theory, it would be the first meeting
I
after that,
see.
I think. I think that's what the language says. After that, where the person would be seated or sworn in.
Right.
It all comes out of a Gilbert lawsuit, but
Yeah, absolutely. There's always more to the story.
Yeah.
Thank you, appreciate that. Nathan, continue.
Lisa, did you have an additional comment?
I did. Additionally, I just wanted to note that there are no formal write-in candidates for the primary election.
So unless
for
the
candidates,
ghost
so.
flies in and takes them out, then we're okay. Dr. Gillespie,
Sweating that one
you're
out.
good. Thank you.
Okay, the other shenanigan that raised our eyebrow was 2210. This was a bill that was ostensibly about continuing various state agencies, but it included a clause in there that requires municipalities to submit an annual report on the average time from submission to approval on a number of different development procedures. The report is due September 30th of every year. The law goes into effect September 15th, so there is some question about whether we actually need to submit a report from last year. A number of jurisdictions may not have even been tracking this data up until now, but that's just one more thing that our community development department will have to deal with.
Yeah, I know we track it, and I guess for staff, it would be if we ever start bumping up against our timeframes that, we legally we're required to do, if you could bring that to us if there's any issues with that, so we're not learning about it in September in a report from 6 months ago. Thanks.
Okay. Next item in my presentation is Ballot Palooza 2024. I've been warning about this the last couple presentations that we are going to have a very large ballot come November. At last count, we are looking at 11 statewide ballot measures. This isn't considering candidates, it's not considering any Pima County referenda, it's not considering any town of Sahuarita ballot initiatives, if there happen to be any. So we're looking at 11 statewide ballot measures, 5 which would be enshrined in statute, 6 which would be constitutional amendments. One of those ballot measures does require a little bit of my time tonight because we have received some questions on it. And that is, none of these ballot measures have numbers yet, so I don't have a number for this one, but its title is Immigration and Border Law Enforcement Measure. This ballot measure would do 4 things. It would enhance sentencing for fentanyl dealing. It would strengthen and expand the federal E-Verify program. It would prevent the submittal of false documents for public benefits, and it would make it a state crime to cross the border illegally. Having said that this ballot measure does 4 things, I do want to call your attention to a lawsuit that was immediately filed contending that this ballot measure violates the one subject rule, that this ballot measure is not directed at a single item, a single subject. That lawsuit was only filed 2 weeks ago, so it's too early yet to tell what its fate will be. We have been asked a couple of times, what impact will this have on the town and our law enforcement agency? From what we can tell, this ballot proposition would enable action by law enforcement, but not require action by law enforcement agencies or law enforcement officials. As far as prevent the submittal of false documents for public benefits, we've looked at that, and we do not believe that the type of public benefits described in the law are anything that the town of Sahuarita grants directly to citizens. So, that's my quick update on Ballotpalooza 2024. I do have one last item to update, but before I move on, I just wanted to see if there were any questions. I printed up a list of all 11 in case you want me to go through each one individually.
I think
but I'll
probably
spare
would,
that.
but unless anybody. Okay.
Okay. Final item, I just want to repeat something that I had mentioned 2 weeks ago when I was here giving this update. At the federal level, we had submitted a number of requests for congressionally directed spending. The expectation, the norm, would be to get one project through that first gate, selected by a congressman and written into the draft budget. Whether that one project would stay in the draft budget would be the next step in that lobbying fight. As I had announced 2 weeks ago, we got 4 projects through that first gate. So 1 project is the expectation, 2 project is a success, 3 projects is an unqualified success, 4 projects is just, unbelievable. I was on a call today with Nexus Consultants, Bob and Anna, and they pointed out, and I agree with them on this, that the difference between 1 project and 4 projects is your faces. Specifically the mayor and Councilmember Morales, traveling to DC, sitting down with the lawmakers and their staff, so that later on when they're going through the applications, they're remembering, hey, I liked Mayor Murphy, I liked Councilmember Morales, they're good people, I'm gonna, put forth their project. So that trip to DC, it bears very real, very tangible results. And I thank you for the time you spent on that trip. So that's all my update for tonight. With the state legislature adjourned for the year, I will probably hide in my office for future council meetings, and you won't see me again until January.
Okay. Well, that's not required, but you're always welcome here. Any questions? Yes, Diane.
I'd like a list. I'd like your list
Okay,
of all
I
the
will
ballot initiatives.
send that out via email.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other questions? Thanks. Thanks for being here, Nathan. Next, we have item number 8, Madam Clerk.
Town Manager's Report highlighting employee and department accomplishments, capital improvement projects, development projects, and town events.
And I think Mr. Dilly has a little present for us tonight, but due to the length of our meeting, but Mr. Dilly,
Thank you,
the
Mr.
floor
Mayor.
is yours.
Thank you, and thank you, members of the council. Yeah, I sent an email out last week just letting you know that in light of how long our agenda is tonight, that the report that we put out every month is online. It's available. I sent it to each of you. Happy to answer any questions that you have. It's been a really busy year. I mean, it just has in terms of our fiscal calendar. Couldn't do it without you as a council, obviously providing leadership in your capacity, but a tremendous lift by our incredible staff. And so just grateful to be here, and it's look forward to our next fiscal year starting right around the corner, and it's already full, so
Yep.
it'll be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I appreciate staff, all the work that goes into producing that report. It's very thorough across the board at all the departments. So I hope they know that I know we read it. So I appreciate the effort on that. Next, we come to brief summary of current events by council members. Simon, Debbie, Diane? Yep.
So I attended the grand opening of the First Responders Tribute that Rancho Sahuarita built. It is stunning. And I have 2 family members that are HSI agents working the Nogales district, and I am thrilled that they, and so are they, to have seen that tribute, and I think they did a great job. What an honor to be there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Gillespie? Kara?
I'm sure you're going to announce the 4th of July event.
Yes.
That's coming up, but no, I don't have any I am a full-time teacher. I have enjoyed the month of June.
Well, good, and just to piggyback off on the Rancho Sarita Park, they opened with the tribute. Shout out to the Green Valley Fire District and our police department. They were both there in force. We got a lot of nice pictures there. We also had the Garbo family, his widow and daughter, who was a DEA agent who lived in Sahuarita, who lost his life interdicting drugs in Tucson in October of 2021. So it was extra special to have them there. As the Vice Mayor mentioned, July 4th, big event down at Animex Park. We're moving it from Town Hall to Animex, so we just like to continue to get that word out. So we're really excited about that. And then also congratulations to the Posca Yaqui. Mayor Honey from Marana and myself went to their inauguration, kind of like our State of the Town, this past weekend, and it was a really nice event. They have 11 board members. Would you like that, Shane, to have 11 town council members?
I'm pretty happy.
Okay.
And they had 41
Candidates.
candidates on the ballot.
Yeah, and they come from all over, as long as you're a part of the nation. The youngest one was 26 from Guadalupe, up by Phoenix, the town of Guadalupe. Drives down 2 hours every day just to attend their meetings, so every week. So it was a really nice event, and I was happy to be there. As a reminder, this is our last meeting before the summer break, so everybody please be safe. And our next regularly scheduled meeting is Monday, August 19th, and we're going to have 3. So you rest up in July, because we're going to have 3 meetings in August, 2 for the town council and a joint meeting with the school district on there. Next is item number 10, which is our consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Now we are entering our special meeting to adopt the final budget of fiscal year 2025. Madam Clerk.
Public hearing, discussion, and possible adoption of resolution number 2024-0793, adopting the fiscal year 2025 budget in the amount of $119,504,150.
Thanks, and Mr. Mariotti will be leading this. Why is this one, for your announcement, 3 sentences, and for the CFD, it's half a page? I'm just throwing that out there. You don't have to, it can be rhetorical, that's fine.
Involvement of different kinds of attorneys. The bond counsel wrote the agenda language for the CFDs.
Ah, okay. The $119 million budget's 2.5 lines in the other one. Okay.
It might get a little more complicated if we issue GO bonds. but
Okay,
anyways,
thank you.
yeah, that
Please
explains it.
continue.
All right, well, this particular agenda item will provide the town council the opportunity to adopt the budget for fiscal year 2025. And our fiscal year starts, it's right around the corner, so next Monday is July 1st. And so we'd like to have a budget in place before the fiscal year begins. We've spent quite a bit of time already talking about the budget during previous retreats and council meetings. So tonight, we will be brief. Okay, so the budget program is $119,504,150, and this is the same amount as the tentative budget that you adopted 2 weeks ago. So the budget is balanced in that our financing sources are equal to our financing uses. This budget is $6.2 million, or 6% more than the current year adopted budget, which is $113 million. Okay, so while the overall budget amount is not changing, we do have a recommended change, and it's really brought about by a necessity. And that is with respect to our Animax Splash Pad capital project. So we do need to do some reallocation of resources and uses to accommodate this issue. So there's been some unforeseen project delays. So when we put together the budget plan initially, we thought that this project was going to be complete by the end of the current fiscal year. But again, due to unforeseen things, it's going to carry forward into next fiscal year. So in the final budget here, we are asking you to accommodate that. Otherwise, we're going to have to stop the project sort of mid-project. So what we need is to take $1.2 million of unspent budget capacity in the current fiscal year and allocate it towards the project next fiscal year. So that would be fairly straightforward, except usually when you have unspent money from the prior year, right, you have higher ending balances that would carry forward. Well, we adopted a tentative budget 2 weeks ago, which sets the budget ceiling.
Right.
So I can't increase our resources next year. So this requires me to do a little bit of shuffling around in the budget. Now, normally what I would recommend is if we had a lot of ending fund balances in our capital projects fund, I would allocate money out of our ending fund balances and put it into the project. But our capital plan actually consumes most of the money in the capital infrastructure improvement fund. So we have to look to the general fund's budget capacity from the tentative budget to allow this to occur next fiscal year. So that's a lot. It's, part of governmental budgeting in Arizona. But this is the net consequence of that discussion, and that is across the board, our financing sources and uses are unchanged. So again, the total amount of the budget is no different than the tentative budget. But in the general fund, the budget is actually going down by $1.2 million, and in the capital infrastructure improvement fund, the budget's going up by $1.2 million. So fortunately, that's the only change we need to make. There were other concerns that I had that I expressed in previous meetings, and that is we didn't know what the U.S. Census Bureau's estimate for our population was going to be, and that is a driver for our state shared revenues. The population estimates actually came in, I believe 361 people less than our town estimates, which I was a little worried about that initially, but that's only one part of the distribution. The other part of the distribution formula looks at the pot of money that's available. And the other thing is, if our population was lower than we estimated, but then all these other jurisdictions, their populations were less than what they estimated, then we may be okay still. And indeed, that ended up being the result, because there were some other changes that the U.S. Census Bureau made that affected all municipalities statewide.
So it changed everybody's slice of the pie, so to speak, by doing that.
But it was sort of equal
Equalized,
distribution,
yeah.
so what we had projected earlier remained the same.
Right.
So we dodged a bullet there. The other thing that was a potential was, well, the state still had large budget deficits, and we didn't know how that was going to shake out when we adopted the tentative budget. Fortunately, nothing that they passed had a detrimental impact to us, so there are no changes as a result of that.
As an example, in the years past, they've swept HERF money, which we potentially would not have received, correct?
Correct, right. But fortunately, that did not happen. They found other ways to balance their budget. Okay. So with that, there's many ways to slice the budget. One of the required ways is to actually allocate your budget across funds. And here's how it shakes out across our 7 funds. Now, 2 of the funds are represented in the CFD pie wedge, and the reason why we combine those is because there are district boards that govern those budgets, which obviously you're fully aware of that, as the district boards met before the council met and adopted those budgets. So we just pull those into the town's financial reporting entity pursuant to governmental accounting standards. Okay, as you can see, the general fund is the largest fund by far. What might not be clear is, well, what types of services are provided out of the general fund? It pays for the vast majority of our operations, and it provides services such as law and order, economic and community development, recreation and community services, parks and facilities maintenance, as well as administration and support services. Okay, so this pie chart here identifies the composition of our funding sources. It's where we get our money from. Our beginning fund balances, basically our savings from the current year that carries forward to next fiscal year, is $62.4 million, or 52% of the total budget. Revenues come in at 44% of the total budget at $51.9 million, and other sources comprise 4% of the budget at $5.2 million, and most of that is from new debt proceeds as well as things as contingency carry forwards that we plan for. With respect to our taxes, it's worth noting that there are no tax increases in the budget. Not only are there no tax increases, there's also no tax structure changes being proposed as part of the budget. We have a balanced budget, so you see sources equaling uses. So this identifies how we're going to use our money during the year. And first, we don't spend everything that we have. So $40.9 million is budgeted as ending balances. That will be money that's saved for 2026 and thereafter. Debt service comes in at $7.6 million. This would be our principal and interest payments on our long-term debt obligations. So the town issues long-term debt to build infrastructure in the community. So just like a mortgage payment, the town has debt service obligations annually. Capital items come in at $33.7 million. These are going to be our big ticket items, capital projects, and basically assets that cost more than $5,000 individually would be budgeted for here. And then operations makes up 31% of the total budget, $37.3 million. And I always reflect operations in two ways to give the community a sense of what our priorities are from a service level perspective. And so we've allocated that operational budget across 15 departments and major divisions, sorted from highest to lowest, highest being on the left. And obviously the outlier here is the police department. Its budget is more than 3.5 times the next largest budget unit. And that's just a reflection of our emphasis on public safety. It's also reflective of the department's round-the-clock operations. Those functions that have the larger budgets are those that provide services directly to our residents or to our business community and development community. And then the administrative areas, those are the ones that tend to have smaller budgets.
Who has the smallest budget?
I believe that was the mayor and
Oh,
council.
okay,
Let's
just
confirm
checking.
that. Yes, all the way on the right, the mayor and council
Okay,
budget.
just checking.
All right, so the budget accommodates the staffing of 198 full-time equivalent employees across our 5 functional areas. This is 8.6 FTE more than the adopted budget for the current fiscal year, and that's a 4.5% change in our FTE count. So here's another way to look at the budget. We're going to start the year with $62.5 million. We expect to collect $51.8 million throughout the year. We've got $4.2 million of other resources. Again, most of that is from new debt proceeds.
Is that 5.2 or 4.2? You said 4.2, but it
Oh,
says
I'm
5.2.
sorry, $5.2 million.
Okay, thanks. We just found $1 million?
It's debt, so.
Oh, okay.
And that gives us total sources of $119.5 million, and that is our budget figure. We've got a $78.6 million spending plan, and that gives us ending balances of $40.9 million. So it's a fairly significant drop in our savings, if you will. That's $21.6 million. It's nothing to be alarmed about because it's really in accordance with our capital plan. So we've accumulated resources in the past to eventually spend, and a lot of this is funded through previously issued debt obligations. So the Rancho Sarita Community Facilities District is $15.5 million of that, and then we also have our WIFA loan for our wastewater expansion projects. Okay, so for final steps, we need to hold a public hearing before the budget can be adopted. After that, council is free to have discussion and to make changes to the budget. You can reallocate things, you could lower the overall budget. The only thing you can't do is you can't increase the budget. That was established by the tentative budget 2 weeks ago. The council may approve the resolution that's before you, which would adopt the 2025 budget, and it also establishes a $6 million rainy day fund in the general fund. And that's $500,000 more than what we have in the rainy day fund in the current fiscal year. So, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. And just, John, just for the record, the resolution includes the changing in the capital and the general fund that AC touched on in the beginning.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Any questions before I open the public hearing?
I have a question.
Yes.
So this question is for Animax Park. There were a lot of issues this past weekend, or Saturday, I should say, with the bathrooms, and that's been an ongoing issue, and there's a lot of people there. Why haven't we fixed the sewer lines there? And what can we do to get that fixed? Because I don't think it's ever come up on the budget, and it's been an ongoing problem.
I don't, oh, go ahead, Devin. And I think it would be in the, John, wouldn't I be right? It has to be kind of in the context of the budget itself, right? On that, because it wasn't an agenda item. Thanks.
Councilmember Morales, thank you for the question. So we actually have, so the issue you're describing, those bathrooms haven't been renovated in 12 years, I believe was the last facelift. In the fiscal 25 budget, through our operations side, we're planning on a full renovation, similar to what was completed this fiscal year at the lake. So our park staff is already prioritizing that fix in July, but that's existing currently in this proposed
In this
fiscal
proposed
25
budget?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
I don't think it's a renovation problem, of the look, because I know that one got renovated with everything. I think it's a sewer problem.
It's actually, what I've been told from our parks manager is it's actually the toilets themselves are aged out. And so they're going to come in and gut the entire inside of them and replace the toilet features and urinals. And that should solve the problem.
So when we say facelift, we don't just mean paint, we mean
No, it's a full
redo.
renovation. So the stalls, the toilets, the urinals. Full paint, exterior renovation. There isn't. From what I'm told, it's a draining issue with the toilets themselves.
But when they're in there renovating, just like you do a house, if something comes up, obviously, you would look at it to address it if you
That's
find
correct.
other things.
That's correct. And
Like
and that-
mold or anything else that you would find.
Yep, and we'll make those corrections as we find them. That restroom was just put on sewer 2 years ago when we put the sewer line through Field 1 over to the splash pad, so it is on sewer now. So it's likely the actual amenities inside the building. Yep, you're welcome.
Thanks. Any other questions? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Would anybody like to address the council on the 2025 budget? Seeing no movement, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Before, I just want to thank AC. This is the 15th budget that I have approved. I think that's the first time I saw some moving of funding. That was kind of fun to watch, but knowing the history of the town of Sahuarita, we have a fantastic financial director. We are lucky to have him and are grateful that he's there at the helm of our financial situation.
How many years in award have we won? In a year, have we won the award?
How many awards have we won in every year?
Years.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we as the town have won about 18 budget awards.
Okay, so the vice mayor can't claim credit for all of that because she was
I
only
missed
here
the
for
first
15
three.
of
I
them.
missed the
Okay.
first three.
Mr. Mayor, she's endured 15 years of me giving this presentation.
And
She
hearing
deserves
some
that
of
award.
and hearing some of the same phrases every year. But with that, I move to adopt resolution number 2024-0793.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, AC. Thanks for the whole team. Madam Clerk, item number 12.
Discussion and possible appointments to the Board of Appeals, Board of Adjustment, Parks and Recreation Commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, Public Safety Personnel Retirement System Board, and Tucson-Pima County Bicycle Advisory Committee.
Thank you. And the council will be nominating many volunteers for the Board of Appeals, Board of Adjustment, Park and Rec, Planning and Zoning, Public Safety Personnel, PSPRS, and the Tucson-Pima County Bike Advisory Council. As you saw, we had a lot of our people that decided to not continue to serve. So what I'll be doing is I'll call on each council member. We're going to start with our senior one tonight, nominating. He's going to teach everybody how to do this, and then we'll keep going down the line. So at this time, Councilmember Davis.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I move to appoint Daniel Millett to the Board of Adjustment and Kevin Rao to the Planning and Zoning Commission to fill terms ending June 30th, 2028.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now we go to Councilmember Gillespie.
Mr. Mayor, I move to appoint Jim Gay to the Board of Adjustments, Lori Brown to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and to reappoint Sheldon Zadig to the Parks and Recreation Commission to fill terms ending in June 30th, 2028.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Councilmember Priolo.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move to appoint Mel Selway to the Board of Adjustment and to reappoint Grace Marrero to the Park and Recreation Commission to fill terms ending June 30th, 2028.
Thank you. I'll entertain a second at this time.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. And I'll appoint Theodore Moeller to the Board of Appeals to fill a term ending January 30th, 2029, and to appoint Stuart Lisk to the Board of Adjustment and reappoint Gina Anderson to Parks and Rec Commission, Judge Clark Munger to the Public Safety Personal Retirement System, and Robert Smith to the Tucson-Pima County Bicycle Advisory Committee to fill terms ending June 30th, 2028. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And just like we thanked the people outgoing, we really thank the people incoming.
Can I do mine too?
Oh, yes. Oh, you wait. You're on the other page. Sorry.
I just know that Sherry Lowell's here. She wants to be appointed.
Oh, can I think on it for a while? No. Vice Mayor, please continue.
I was like wondering. Okay, I move to appoint Sherry Lowell to the Parks and Recreation Commission and to reappoint Daniel Millett to the Planning and Zoning Commission to fill terms ending June 30th, 2028.
I'll second.
And I know both of them, so I would never have done that because I didn't like you. I know you both very well. Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And you didn't have anybody. Okay, so I don't want you thinking I missed her. We're good on that. So again, that's right, they're still in there serving. But thanks again. As you saw, a lot of people termed off, and we really appreciate all the efforts of everybody contributing to our community. Madam Clerk, item number 13.
Presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding the 410 Flexible Work Pilot Program and possible permanent implementation of the 4-day work week.
Thank you. And Ms. Silva, Jessica Silva is our Human Resources Director, will present this item. Thanks again, everybody, for willingness to serve. And thanks for coming. Mike, yep, Mike, you got to hit the button.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm here to present the final results of the 410 Flexible Work Pilot Program. But before we get to the results of the program, we need to take a few minutes to remember how we got here. So if you remember, back in the fall of 2022, we conducted an employee survey, the results of which indicated that employees wanted more flexible schedules and possible remote work. In November of 2022, we also conducted a space study that determined that in order to meet our staffing needs in the next 10 to 15 years, we would need to build an additional 5,000 square foot facility. And that would follow a traditional in-person model versus using our existing town hall. The footprint with some interior renovations could meet our needs through at least 2042. The cost for the traditional model, if we were to build this new facility, would be $17.4 million. Utilizing our existing space and completing some renovations and introducing a hybrid or remote model would cost $7.6 million. So it's an additional $10 million in savings. And the hybrid model would allow for over 200 staff. So as a result of that employee survey, council took action in August of 2023. We implemented a 410 flexible work pilot program. We also created Club Spike, which was a no-cost after-school program for town employees with children in grades K through 6. We added additional voluntary benefits for staff to include pet insurance and prepaid legal services. For those employees whose positions were amenable to it, we implemented remote work on occasion and flexible schedules. Council also approved merit increases for up to 4% based on performance. Because this was a pilot program, town operating hours changed from Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. to Monday through Thursday from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Most town offices were closed on Friday, though some services did continue. We introduced alternate flexible and remote schedules where appropriate, and in January of 2024, we had a mid-program check-in, and in June of 2024, we had a final program check-in. From the January 2024 check-in, our takeaways were that the 410 alternative work schedule is largely positive. There are some employees who do struggle with those new hours. For those who use them, the voluntary benefits are satisfactory, and compensation and staffing challenges are still on the forefront. 86% of those employees who responded to the survey were likely to recommend the town of Sahuarita as a place of employment to friends and family. Of the 184 employees surveyed, in January, 111 responded. So we conducted another survey at the end of June, or at the beginning of June. We surveyed 184 employees, 88 responded. When asked about the town's efforts to improve work flexibility, 60% of those who responded said it was extremely effective. 30% said it was marginally or somewhat effective, and 10% said it was ineffective. When we asked employees how they feel about the new hours and the schedule, 67% of those who responded said it was excellent or good, 20% said it was fair or poor, and 23% it did not apply to. Those are going to be the employees who already work the 410, generally at the police department. When we asked employees whether there was a change in their work-life balance, 41% indicated it had improved greatly, 24% said it had improved slightly, 24% said there was no change, and 11% said that there was no improvement. When we asked employees how they felt about the additional voluntary benefits, 23% were highly satisfied, 8% were somewhat satisfied, 5% were somewhat unsatisfied, and 67% did not utilize them. And again, of the 184 employees that we sent the survey to, only 88 responded. So this percentage is of those employees who did actually respond to the survey. So our takeaways is that the 410 flexible work schedule and new operating hours is positive overall. Some employees do still struggle with the change in operating hours. Not all employees can take advantage of the flexible scheduling, and for those who use them, the voluntary benefits are satisfactory. There are some departments who are not on the new operating hours, largely the police department and the court and Parks and Rec. They do still struggle for support. When you have someone who needs IT or finance or human resources on a Friday, it's a little bit more of a challenge to get that support. 68% of those who responded are likely to recommend the town of Sahuarita as a place of employment to friends and family.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Well, as we know, this was, or Shane, did you want to add anything before I make a couple comments? No, this was a pilot, and, we have a couple of choices. We can, make it permanent, but permanent means it's permanent until it's not permanent, as time goes on, or we can revert back to the original one. Obviously, you're never going to make, I don't think, 100% of the people happy. I'd say the vast majority. I know departments are working with those that struggle with it, but it's council's pleasure on what to do. Does anybody, Simon, want to weigh in? Debbie, want to weigh in?
I'm just curious to know, out of like the 88 that responded, what departments are they in? What was the majority of the departments?
All survey responses were anonymous. We did that to encourage candid feedback.
Because some departments being small, if it was either positive or not, you would be able to identify it, right?
That's correct.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I was reading through many of the comments, almost all of them, and I saw a couple of things that have concerns as to where employees that are working, trying to reach employees that are working from home, and the response time is not what it would be when they're normally working in the office. Is that something that's going to be addressed? Because I have concerns in that aspect. If they're working from home, that still means they're working. Like they still need to be available like they are if they're sitting in their office. And I'm just curious if there's something that you guys are going to consider doing that.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Again, this survey was anonymous. However, as of the last 2 or 3 weeks, we have a pretty good idea of a couple of areas where this might be playing out, and there's already plans in place to get those addressed. So, we look at the survey that went out midstream in this, and we had over 100 respondents to it. We look at this survey, and there's fewer responders. We tend to see that when there's real issues out there, we tend to get more people vocalizing that there's a problem. And so it's when you do an anonymous survey, you have to do some kind of reasonable deductions on the input. But the direct answer to your question is we do know that there's a couple of very specialized internal service areas that have come up on our radar, and we are planning to address those.
And I know Jessica touched on other departments that might need support on a Friday. Does that kind of include that under the whole umbrella that we can look at that if there's a trend? I know police are 24/7, right? So if they need HR help or something on a Friday, for instance, there may be a struggle there. But can you just touch on that as you did the Vice Mayor's question?
Yeah, thanks. So part of it is our organization adapting internally. So, if we make a 410 change permanent, there may be some of our operational practices that need to change as well. Like, do you schedule a heavy recruitment day on a Friday?
Right.
Well,
or a state of the town.
Right. That may not be a very smart action, right? That's self-creating problems for our, internally. So we can be a little smarter about how we conduct internal business and support each other. And so it's just this, in some part, I'm not saying all, but in some part, it's our organization kind of, feeling our way through these changes. So I think that in part answers some of that question, but no doubt there are some other issues that absolutely need to be addressed, and we've identified a few of them.
Right. I certainly would be leaning to keeping it permanent, but can staff, as we do on our new employees, we're doing quicker check-ins, can over this next year, if it's made permanent, can we still do a 6-month check-in and have an update at the council retreat for the budget, just so that this is an ongoing, check-in? Because, again, we can always go back if the trend keeps, if it goes negative.
Yes, thank you. And I think we're due for another comprehensive employee survey. It was,
yes, that's
right?
Correct.
So I think later this fall, we're planning on another comprehensive survey to keep that every other year practice going. And we can certainly include, it'll be more along the lines of, flexibility, support,
right.
Operational efficiencies, that kind of thing. And we'll be able to provide that feedback to the council as well.
Thanks. Any other, yes, Diane?
Yes, I have several questions. Number one, will Club Spike still be continued free of charge for employees for daycare costs?
Our commitment to the employees was that it would be free during the pilot program. This is one of the cost center questions that have yet to be answered. But as we develop our fee schedule to come back to council and consider, one of the question marks is, do we want to offer employees a discounted price or free of charge? So that's a question that has yet to be brought before you guys as a council, but you'll have an opportunity to weigh in on it.
Okay, question number two. I remember when this pilot program was first proposed, one of the hopes we had was that it would be a recruitment tool, that it would make our town more attractive to come work to, because people would be drawn to the 410 work schedule. Has that borne out in reality?
You want to take a stab, or you want?
Sure.
Okay.
We don't have statistics as far as whether or not that was something that draws people. On our application, there is a place for you to say who has referred you to the town, but there's not a place to say what benefits does the town offer that draws me to them. So we're able to speak with new employees to determine if the 410 is a factor, but not necessarily all of the people who have applied.
I will add that you, as a council, received a presentation from Nathan Barrett not too long ago, where he was talking to you about doing some attrition analysis. And based off of what he was communicating to you, is that he saw a pretty drastic change in terms of the attrition levels in our organization over the last 2 years as compared to when you go back even further than that. So how to bifurcate the true impact of 410 versus our efforts to employ a flexible work option for employees, that one's going to be really, really difficult to kind of parse out. But we can, Jess, I think we could probably ask a question on the front end of applications. Why are you applying? Do you think we could do that?
We can certainly explore that.
Yeah, so it really is, we can't force somebody to answer those questions, but we can start asking those questions.
Right. I think even as specific as, was the 410
Right.
one of the reasons? Because at least we can build a history of that, it's only been a year, right? So over the next couple of years, if that has seemed to show benefit, at least we'll have a tracking of that.
Yes, and I agree with the mayor. I would like that specificity in that question, because I remember being, that was a big factor for me, whether it was going to be a draw to have people want to come work in Sahuarita. Have we lost people because of it?
Because of the 410 specifically?
Yes.
No, we have not.
Well, that's good. Okay. There was one more. How do we measure up as a community to other towns or cities that have adopted the 410 schedule? Have other towns that they've adopted it permanently? Has it been a beneficial thing?
I guess, I think I had heard before, if you can answer, if you do know the answer, but I think I've heard anecdotally, the towns in Arizona that have gone to it, nobody has reversed back, but I'd rather have that come from you guys and not from me as a rumor.
I think there was one community in the West Valley up in Phoenix that had reverted back to a traditional 5-day work week. But it's very clear that the lion's share of the communities that do transition to a 410, when the rubber hits the road and they end up saying back to the employees, hey, do you want to revert back to a traditional 5-day work week? The answer is no. So I think that proves out in the data. I mean, everybody that moves in this direction stays in this direction for the most part. It's hard to benchmark us right now because we're just barely through our pilot program,
right?
And we're the only community in this region that has done this,
right?
So it's a little hard to benchmark.
Dr. Gillespie.
Wait, I'm not done.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
One more. Okay, so there was a slide up there that talked about the cost of renovations to the town hall. And if I understood it correctly, yeah, the traditional model was 17.4 million and a hybrid model was 7.6 million. And the hybrid model means that 40% meet needs within current footprint. Is us maintaining this 410 work schedule important in order to be able to do that hybrid model and save all that money?
It's probably imperative, but I will let staff answer that. Because the other model, wasn't it, Shane, that if we had a butt in a seat, so to speak, going forward as we continue to grow, we would need the $17.4 million footprint as opposed to the other.
Yeah, I guess I'm reluctant to say that it's imperative, but if you reduce your frequency into this building by 1 day, so that makes the remote work impact on this organization, arguably 20% easier. than if you were a 5-day work week in the building. So I would say that the 410 schedule helps and supports the town's plan to push remote work in order for this footprint to be able to house our growing demands for the future. And that was based off of that spatial analysis by the consultant.
Did that answer your question, Diane? Yep. Thank you. Did you have any others before? Nope. Dr. Gillespie.
In the next survey that's done, can we ask specifically if people would rather go back to the 5-day work week versus do you find this satisfactory or okay? Just almost a yes/no question.
Yes, we can certainly add that question.
Thank you. And then I was also happy to hear that no one's left due to the 410s, because I was worried that that could have been, actually I'm a little surprised that that wasn't an impact on people with young kids or people who couldn't maintain that schedule.
And probably, Dr. Gillespie, I'm guessing because of the hybrid flexibility within the department, where there would have been maybe struggles, that might have helped. Would that be accurate, Jessica?
I think that's a fair assessment.
Okay.
Anecdotally, we have heard that the remote work flexibility made the 410 a more plausible and feasible solution for employees that really wanted to do it but had a problem being able to make it happen, right? So I think anecdotally we can say that that's the case. Also, when we put Club Spike out as an option for employees, there were I think our expectations were met in terms of the number of employees that signed up, but we found that even those that signed up, which weren't a whole lot, didn't fully take advantage of it, which would suggest to us as leadership that our anticipation on the family impact wasn't as great as perhaps we thought it was going to be, because we built up a pilot program to support a lot more than what ended up taking advantage of the program.
Great. Yes, Debbie. Oh, did you have another one, Dr.?
Debbie's got it.
Are you sure?
I have
Okay.
two.
Okay. Debbie and then the Vice Mayor.
What about the community's input? Do we have any kind of complaints or anything from the communities complaining that we're not open on Fridays?
I personally have not gotten any complaints from the community.
I mean, and we have Anna here, we have Nalo, others that can weigh in if you heard differently. But as I've talked with Saba reps and our local developers, people that would likely have probably been the most vocal if we weren't able to meet those types of demands going to the 410, and it's like business as usual for them. We flexed our muscles a little bit on the website to make more available some of our operational practices, so that people could submit plans and make permits online and schedule inspection work and things like that. But to be honest with you, most of us as town leadership, we're working on Fridays anyway.
Well, I was going to say, probably because of good department heads, if an issue happens to come up because of relationships that have been built over the years, I'm sure things, people are going to answer the phone, right? Whether it's you or Anna or Victor or me, that would answer if there's a problem.
And so in some cases where a department was totally closed down on Fridays, that's the case. I mean, we're always going to answer a phone call. We're always going to respond to our community stakeholders. That's just, we do it on Saturdays, we do it on Sundays. It's just part of the job. But we also were able to manage the 410 schedule with other functions where it was kind of a split. Some of that group worked Tuesday through Friday, and some of that group worked Monday through Thursday, to kind of spread it out so that our services continue to be 5, 6, 7-day services a week, but we're implementing a 410 schedule with them. So between a combination of a lot of different things, I haven't heard of any complaints from our stakeholders or outside customers.
Did you have a follow-up? No. Okay. Did you have another one? Oh, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, you were next in
That's
line.
okay, I just wanted, following up with what Debbie just said, have we noticed that the residents and our clients utilizing our extended hours? Do we see residents coming in at 7 or after 5 PM? Do they know that it's open? Are our clients, like, are the people that we're serving, are they making the phone calls after 5 and, like, we utilize it, having this longer workday? Do the residents know we're open, or do they just think we're not open on Fridays? I guess is my question.
What about foot traffic in the foyer, Lisa? Maybe we'll start there.
So as far as residents calling or stopping by for notary service or asking questions, phone calls, I would say that traffic is fairly minimal in the mornings and in the later evenings. Foot traffic certainly, has been steady on Monday through Thursdays. We have not received any complaints about not being open on Friday that I'm aware of. However, I do know that, those who do come in, especially early in the morning, are appreciative that those services are available to them.
Excellent. It just may be something we need to occasionally just throw out there, making sure that the residents know that our hours are extended.
Well, I think part of it is that it was a pilot, so we were pushing it out, but probably not to the degree that, we don't want to say it 11 months in, and then all of a sudden we revert back. So, maybe if tonight, we're good with, at least for now, and I would say, now until something happens, and we'd have to think of it as a permanent basis, then we can probably push it out a little bit more. Because I always wondered about notaries. I would have taken advantage if I was still working to come either later or after work to do that. But I think, because Shane mentioned, we're the only one in southern Arizona that's doing it. So it's probably, it has to be a habit, where residents have to get used to the fact that, oh, I got home at 5:30, I can run over to the town hall and get something notarized.
I can tell you that I routinely get calls,
Later now.
well after 5.
And not just me.
And they do, no, external calls,
Okay.
and they do it quite comfortably, and they know that we're, we're on a 410,
Excellent.
yeah.
And then with my follow-up question regarding the work from home, I'm not sure if there just needs to be communication that an employee that works from home, are they supposed to be working till 6 o'clock where they need to be available, or are they working with their supervisors to say, I'm taking off at 4, but I'm going to get 2 hours in before midnight, I'm going to do it after my kids go to bed? Is that clearly identified, that the supervisors are aware of what it looks like? And I'm curious, when we have this new survey, maybe splitting those two out, because it definitely seemed like there was some animosity between those two things, the 410s and the work from home. And then I'd like to have a follow-up as to how the in-house departments are working. Like this discussion of, have you seen a difference in being able to contact? Because it seemed that it was one of the biggest complaints in those comments were, I'm trying to get my work done and I'm being hindered because somebody is working from home. And so there's that department strife and blaming that didn't necessarily there before, but it seems to be now. Especially, it seemed like it came across those that are allowed to have the work from home versus those that don't. And there seems to be, I would just hate for that to continue. So I would just like to have a follow-up conversation of how we're addressing it and how it's being looked at, fixed.
Okay. Any more questions to my left? Yes, Diane.
So I thought of one more. I'm curious, especially for the department heads, while we were assessing that CUP3 for the Vulcan hot mix asphalt plant, was being open only 4 days a week. Was it enough, given the volume of the work and the intensity of the work, to respond to all those emails and questions from staff?
I'm certainly happy to have Anna come up and she can share her, her perspective on it. I would just state 40 hours a week is 40 hours a week. Whether you do it 5 days or 4 days, it's 40 hours a week. So I'll let Anna jump in.
And maybe some of it was she had peace and quiet between 5 and 7 and actually could have got some extra work done.
My point is that we rarely work 40 hours a week, especially at the leadership level. So it's, it is just, anyway, yeah,
Yep.
Go ahead, Anna.
And you heard a lot of the dialogue so far, so if you wanted to touch on any of it, especially your department because you interface with the development community and things like that.
Sure, thank you, Mayor Murphy, Councilmember Priolo, and the rest of the council. Regarding the workload during the Vulcan CUP, 40 hours was not enough. It didn't matter, like Shane said, it didn't matter if it was Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday. It just was not enough. I was working regularly more than 50 hours, probably 55 hours a week on average, for quite a few months. It was a lot. Working on vacations, working on the weekend, but this is not a complaint. It was part of the job. But it wouldn't have made a difference whether it was 4 days or 5 days. And going back to what Mayor Murphy said, if I had any other comments, we currently in community development have most of our staff on the 410s. We did keep our inspection function on 5/8s. Originally, we started out having our inspectors rotate either on Monday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday. It didn't work well. 10 hours is a long day out in the field. And also on the average day, we just didn't have the inspection workload to keep an inspector busy for 10 hours. So it just worked a lot better to move the inspection group back to 5/8s, and that's working fine. Our customers are happy as long as they can get their inspections 5 days a week. They don't seem to mind that we're not accepting permits on Fridays.
Right, because they just probably modify their submittal process, right, knowing Monday through Thursday.
Right, they just get used to it.
Yeah, that's
They,
kind
they
of-
know that if they submit on a Thursday, they'll get their single-family permit on a Monday.
Right, thanks. Any questions more to my right? No, to my left? Well, it's council pleasure.
Okay,
So,
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the 410 flexible work program from a pilot program to a permanent program.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thanks for the great discussion, and I know you took a lot of notes from, the ongoing concerns, and again, it's permanent, but, we're going to monitor.
Absolutely.
As we continue to move forward. Madam Clerk, item number 14.
Presentation of the Solid Waste Collection Program request for proposal.
Thank you. And Mr. Nalovali, the two first names, not two last names, our Public Works Director, as he mentioned at our last retreat, introduced the item, and we have our consultants from Burns and McDonnell, and we'll present a summary of our request for proposal, key requirements and specifications. Good evening, Nalo.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to present. Tonight marks a major milestone in our process, so it's a new solid waste program for our town. We have Burns and McDonnell here tonight, our partner and consulting firm with extensive experience in the development of solid waste management or solid waste programs, as well as in the solid waste management area. They're here to present the highlights of the request for proposal. With that, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Seth Dittman. He's the senior environmental engineer with Burns and McDonnell that's been helping us out with the development of the request for proposal, or RFP. Seth will be presenting the highlights of the RFP as well as answering any questions you may have at the end of the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome. And Nalo, can you show him, if it's not, the little toggle switch, if he wants to raise the whole podium there? Yeah. Yeah, if he needs to. I don't think straightening out the microphone by itself will be sufficient.
As I can here. Is that close enough? Sounds like
Well,
it.
you can keep moving it as long as you want.
That's good. All right, and then this is my clicker there. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to present to council. As Nalo said, my name is Seth Dittman, and I'm with Burns and McDonnell. Burns and McDonnell is a full-service engineering company with offices throughout the United States and internationally, and our solid waste and recycling practice is focused on providing advice to municipal clients who provide services to the public either directly or in partnership with private sector contractors. So our agenda for this evening, we'll just start with a brief review of the previous recommendations that we made when we were here in January. We'll follow that with an overview of the draft resolution that's being considered by council tonight, in addition to an overview of the RFP process. We'll provide a few key details of the RFP and then the proposed timeline and next steps, and then we'll have time for questions. So in January of this year, my associate Scott Pasternak presented the findings of our collection system evaluation. The town's current system is an open market system, which is to say that individual residents may contract with any of the licensed private sector service providers that operate in the area. Our recommendation was for the town to begin a transition to an exclusive town collection system. The first step in that process being to develop an RFP for a single exclusive town collection contract providing service to all residential properties. So there are a number of anticipated benefits to an exclusive town collection system. Having only one collection contractor means fewer collection vehicles on the road, which has a lot of benefits, including fewer vehicles on residential streets, reduced traffic, noise, odor, and other aesthetic impacts, improved safety in residential neighborhoods, reduced emissions, increased recycling participation, and customer convenience. Bulk collection also tends to reduce illegal dumping. It has benefits for street maintenance through reduced wear and tear on infrastructure. And having a single system provides a single point of accountability, uniform standards, and improved consistency and reliability in service delivery. So as directed by council, Burns and McDonnell has been working with town staff over a number of months to define the scope of services and develop RFP documents for the town collection system. The documents have been reviewed by town legal and purchasing departments and are ready to be finalized and released, subject to council approval of the resolution this evening. So turning our attention to the resolution that is in front of you for adoption this evening. In a nutshell, the purpose of the resolution is to announce the town's intention to establish an exclusive residential waste and recycling collection system. Some key features as outlined in the resolution are that the system would collect at minimum trash, recycling, and bulk waste. Included in collection is also the disposal and or processing of recyclable materials at facilities to be provided by the contractor. The system would service residential properties with 4 dwelling units or less. Service commencement would begin no earlier than July 1st, 2025. So council could have the option, depending on how the RFP turns out, of approving ultimately a later start date, but sort of informing existing contractors operating in the area that the soonest that it could go to an exclusive system would be July 1st, 2025.
And also, just if I could add, one of the options after the RFP is not moving forward.
Correct.
So I just wanted to add that for the record, that the RFP is just to put it on the street to understand and get that type of feedback.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to just confuse that it was, we couldn't do it before and we only could do it later. We don't have to do it at all, potentially.
Mayor and council, it is kind of interesting that as part of this process, we adopt this kind of resolution or ask you to consider adopting this kind of resolution tonight where you're announcing the intention to do something.
Right.
But this is, this is a rather important step because you have to, because it's provided by the private sector, there's contracts out there and things
Right.
like that. And so putting this step out there is really, really important, or taking this step is really important. But the point that you're making, Mayor, and it's an incredibly important point, this does not take away the option for council to just say, we're not doing anything.
Right.
So we get the RFP results back and you're not satisfied with it, you know, turn the lights off and we're done with that, right?
Right.
But yeah.
Legally, if we have the resolution for the intent, John, that, can you go back out again, or would that have to be a whole nother conversation, like go sharpen your pencil, so to speak, if the proposals come back and they're not satisfactory?
Well,
Or
the
do we have to-
resolution tonight is not to send out an RFP. The resolution tonight is to announce that an RFP is going out, and that anything after the date, any contract entered into after the date of the resolution, tonight's resolution, is going to be deemed not binding if it extends past the effective date where the town sort of takes over service.
Right.
And remember, it only applies to 4
dwellings.
4 dwellings or smaller, including single-family homes. So the RFP, the council is not required to authorize the RFP from a legal standpoint, so the RFP will go out. But the resolution is really the sort of notice to the current providers that's the plan.
Right, so in 14, which we're on now, is really to give feedback on the
Right.
satisfaction
Right.
of the RFP.
Right,
And then
exactly.
15, the next item, is the intent.
Yeah, they're sort of
after-
intertwined.
Yes, it's sort of
Yep.
intertwined, but we're really focusing on
Yep.
if the RFP covers the bases for the council as a whole.
Yes.
Thank you, please continue.
All some very good points being made, and will be fleshed out a little bit on the next slide. But while we're kind of on that topic, I thought it was good timing to mention that there are key differences between the resolution and the RFP. For example, the resolution speaks to, you know, the possibility of a town-operated system or multiple contracts, or, I mean, there are a number of options contemplated there to give council future flexibility, whereas the RFP is, you know, for an exclusive contract only, right? So, because you'll go to the market with that option, you'll get it priced, and then you'll be able to make a decision afterwards about, as you said, whether you want to do it at all.
Thanks.
So, 4 dwelling units or less, service commencement date. Other services not included in the town system, as I believe I mentioned, it is for residential services. So other services like commercial trash and recycling, roll-offs, construction and demolition type service remains non-exclusive. And in addition, the resolution gives town staff the authorization that they need to go to market with the RFP. Thunder still a little bit on this one, but we wanted to point out that the resolution as written does give council a lot of flexibility. So you'll have the ability to approve the RFP results. At the conclusion of the process, you could award a contract, you could postpone and direct staff to look at, you know, other options like a town-operated system. You could revise and reissue the RFP. Also worth mentioning that just the standard RFP process within itself does have a best and final offer process, so you can ask them to sharpen their pencils even within just this discrete process. Or you could cancel the entire process and say, we're going to maintain an open market system. The program details then are finalized through a future ordinance, which is distinct from the resolution. The ordinance then would be sort of council's official decision on the RFP. The final decision on what the start date will be, and the program rules that will apply to the users of the system, which will, you know, in part be dictated by the terms of the contract that's negotiated. So it's best to do that kind of program creation ordinance writing after you sort of have seen all the deals and negotiated the contract. And as has already been mentioned, private contracts signed after the resolution date will end on the final service commencement date as approved by council. So just a few key features of the RFP. Residential service with properties, 4 dwelling units or less, as has already been mentioned. Weekly trash and recycling collection in 96-gallon carts on the same day of the week. That's all fairly standard, and it's a good level of service. We're also asking for prices on several different options for bulk trash collection. One is a fixed schedule 4 times per year, and then the other options are by appointment, either 4, 6, or 12 times per year. So the fixed collection you may be familiar with, that's where, there's sort of a published calendar or schedule, 4 times per year, your home gets bulk waste collection. By appointment is the homeowner has a certain number of, collections kind of included in their regular rate that they can schedule as they need. If if you went with 12 times per year, they could do all 12 of them, in a short period of time or spread out throughout the year. But the point is, it's a fixed number. Naturally, the cost goes up, the more free collections you give. But we find in our experience that by appointment tends to be quite a bit more cost effective on a per collection basis than a fixed schedule is. So, you may be able to offer, 6 or 12 collections for something that's not, 3 times the price of 4 times per year if you went with a fixed. So, again, asking for different options gives you the ability to choose once you see what the pricing is.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are we also getting a bid without the bulk waste option? And could we do that?
We could do it. As it's written right now, we don't. Is that something you'd like us to? It would not be difficult to make that change if you, our understanding was that bulk was a high priority in terms of the feedback that was received.
Through the survey?
Survey.
It could be good. At least personally for me, depends on the price point.
Right.
Like, I'll pay so much for it, but not that much for it.
Right. Well, actually, because we price these things separately, you could, I think, now that you've asked the question, there would be some very minor because I believe we've sort of, part of getting bidder interest in this is to tell them there's certain things that we say are guaranteed to be part of the package, and then certain that are sort of optionals, right? And we called bulk one of the guaranteed parts. So if we made it optional, we're already pricing it separately, so all we would have to do is just move it from the guaranteed scope to the optional scope column, and then we would be able to either take it or leave it. So,
Why don't we go ahead and just do that, if you don't mind? Just have it as an ad alternate, and, we'll take a look at the pricing with all the other services, and they can just make a decision.
Sure.
I know this isn't part of it, but just from a council standpoint, since we never talk except when we're here, I think one of the benefits of having the bulk collection, it allows the community to stay cleaner. It allows the people to get rid of stuff around their homes that they don't want to pay. It allows it to have safer environments, less
illegal dumping usually is the bigger types of stuff.
Yes, there's just so many aspects of it that allows people to clean house when those come around. So I find that in communities that have it, it's actually highly utilized.
Right. And that'll be a decision point, because we'll know, either way, with it and without it. Yeah. And, I don't know if this is accurate, but as you said, if it goes out as a guarantee, I'd be interested in the price point if it's rolled in as the guaranteed package, as opposed to without it at all.
Right.
Because economy of scale, they might give a better rate if it is in there as opposed to as an add-all.
Yeah, you could do that. You could do that too. You could ask them to they're already pricing it à la carte by these different collection frequencies, but you could also say, price it bundled with the others and not bundled with the
I was thinking
others.
like Cox Communication, if you're getting phone, landline, computer, and all of it, and I said, well, I didn't want the phone, well, then it was basically more expensive because they unbundled it, but,
Mr. Mayor,
might work that way.
For all the reasons that the Vice Mayor just brought forward, those are the reasons we asked our consultants to include bulk as one of the guarantees.
Right.
In a former life, I saw that was one of the primary selling points to the public for going to a regulated system, and it was because the community now had access to free bulk pickup as part of their just monthly rate.
Right. But we'll get it broken out, and then we'll know. Thanks.
Okay. So, moving on to the service area. So the RFP identifies the town limits as the initial service area, but it specifies that additional areas may be added in the future and extended at the same price. Pricing is typically in collection contracts given in terms of, per residential service unit per month. So if you extended to areas just outside of town limits, you could do that at the same price per household.
And I know we've had this conversation before, Shane, but could that be one of the annexation benefits from that it would become automatic, or can we not do that or do that legally?
No, I think that we could do that. I think that we could do that automatically.
Right.
As we expand. I mean, the same with our police service,
Right.
right? I mean, it's just it's the service that we provide, right?
Right.
So, I think that would occur. And I'm extremely hopeful that the outcome of this RFP process is going to show that there's a distinct difference. Like when you're driving down the road, when you come into Sahuarita versus being out in the county, you're going to know that you're getting a service from the town of Sahuarita because there's going to be a significant price difference.
Right.
That's my hope, based off of, again, that previous life.
Yep. Thanks.
So just a few other key features, and again, our byword, we try to make it flexibility. So, pricing options for the town to consider. So, the first doesn't really fit in that category, but a contract term of 7 years plus up to 3 years of optional renewals. That's pretty typical in the industry. It allows, the vendors to sort of fully depreciate their investment in the collection vehicles. Billing and customer service. So we've asked for separate pricing for this service to be provided by the contractor versus provided by town staff. Cart purchase, maintenance, and storage. So separate options for town or contractor to perform each of these functions. Cost adjustments, this is worth mentioning. Inflation is a very big factor in this industry right now. It's very much on people's minds, and one of the things that is contentious in contract negotiations. So we typically recommend including an inflation-based adjustment in the contract from the get-go. So we've said a adjustment of up to 5% based on the garbage and trash collection index. And disposal and recycling processing, as mentioned earlier, is provided by the contractor and included in the collection fees.
On my bill, currently, there's always a gas allowance or whatever that they seem to keep on moving and trading. Would they not have the ability to do that? The number wouldn't change based on gas prices and things like that, right?
Right. Yeah, we used to do a lot of composite indices where you'd say, okay, name your percentage of the so much of your price times the percent increase in the fuel increase, plus so much for, this and that. And this garbage and trash collection index, it tends to run higher than, your general CPI, all items index. And it is specifically based on trash collection costs, and it's a pretty fair indicator. And since we've kind of switched to doing that, we don't typically have fuel surcharges or other things of that nature in there. We've successfully, negotiated a number of contracts that way. The RFP does have an exception process in there where if they strongly object to terms that we've written into it, they can raise them as exceptions, say that their price is, does not include that, and that then becomes a negotiating point. But I have not seen anyone recently take an exception to, if you give them the garbage and trash collection index, they accept that generally as a fair reflection of market forces. So.
Mayor and Council,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Diane?
Yeah, I have a question about the billing and customer service.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of my pet peeves, so once the company that I use missed a pickup, and it was awful trying to schedule getting pickup because their whole system was based on websites and chats and AI and voicemail trees, none of which gave me the ability to say, hey, you guys missed my pickup, come, when are you going to come? The contract managed billing, would that include a live human being to answer a phone so you, public, would be spared that angst?
Yes, we have asked that they do have a customer service portal that's online, but we've also asked for a telephone option. Also, whether it's done by, if it's done by the contractor, the town also has the right under the contract as written, first of all, to have access to their customer service portal so the town can see if they're meeting. So for example, for missed collections, there's a specified time frame that they have to make it up, and the town can check and see if that's actually occurring or not. And there are liquidated damage provisions that actually, the contractor pays costs, to reimburse the town for the extra, headaches that it has responding to, dissatisfied customers and such. So, we have, that is, one advantage of having the customer service and billing done by the town is that you have your own staff, you have more control over them than you do the contractor, and you are incentivized differently than the contractor. But it can work both ways. If the contractor is doing it, town staff will have to be diligent to make sure that they're doing a good job and that they're using the mechanisms available to them to hold the contractor accountable.
And that's one of the benefits I see just in general, because if Tom calls or Diane calls, right, as an individual, there's really nothing that holds the feet to the fire, whether it's internal or working with them, their customer service department, we have teeth in it, because it's the town's contract. That's where I see as one of the benefits. But to that point, just make sure that there is at least an option for a human, whether it's internal or external, as one of the RFP.
Yeah. I feel strongly there needs to be a human being. Drives me crazy. AI, chats, no human being, voicemail trees. It's cold.
And it could be a, combination.
Every box or situation.
Because I would go to the, first I'd probably go to the web, version of it, but, I'm giving that one shot. If I'm not hearing back, I would personally would as well, would like to be able to call somebody on there, but If there's only one way to do it, and that's through chat and web, and you're not getting a response, then you're frustrated.
Mr.
So-
Mayor,
Yes.
just a couple, along these lines. I have a couple of questions. On the 5%, do you see, on the annual adjustments, do you see that is high in comparison to what you see that CPI index being over, an average of the past, 5-10 years? Where does that 5% really land? I know it's up to and it's based upon, but I'd like to know what you see in terms of industry. And then on the billing and customer service, have you seen a model out there that allows for billing to be handled by one entity and customer service the other entity? In other words, if we wanted to maintain customer service ourselves and allow the billing to happen, through the vendor, have you seen that? And does this RFP, as it's structured today, allow us to consider those types of options when we get the results?
Yes. As we've structured it right now, we group them, I think, just because, one of the main things that people might call about is the billing, and, it can get complicated. If we could certainly do it. We could ask for the pricing for the two functions separately. As it's written right now, they are grouped together. So, at town's pleasure, we can definitely separate them if that's
Yeah, does that
preferred.
give you concern, Shane, that if billing is the biggest issue and they're calling the town because of the customer service aspect of it, we wouldn't have access to the billing? So I can kind of see the point, but I understand.
I would see, if we did separate those, I would see if you have a question regarding your billing,
Call
you
here.
press this,
Right.
press 1, and it takes you to, the vendor, because
Right.
they're billing. If you have a question about service.
Right, or misdelivery.
Hit 2, and it takes you to us because, the garbage can isn't working, or the truck, spilt garbage all over the place, or, they bent my mailbox, when they
Right.
drove by, that kind of stuff. That's the kind of customer service that I think I'd want to be more a part of.
Right.
And let at least in my mind right now, let the vendor take care of the billing side of it. But again, this is just, what are we asking for in terms of a response to the RFP?
Right.
We can make these decisions down the road if
Right.
it's structured right, so that we can,
Yeah.
separate
I hadn't
things.
even thought about the fact that if they call in, you could hit one number and be directed to them for
Yeah.
billing.
Yeah.
And then if it's anything else,
Yeah.
it's us with a person
Yeah.
who can follow up on it, as
Right.
opposed to the resident. And we have a contact and we have that relationship, as opposed to one-off resident who,
Yeah.
isn't.
So I would recommend that we try to split that out, just so that we have the option when we consider the RFP.
So I have a question.
Debbie?
Back to you, Shane. If we're going to be doing the customer service part of it, and I call to tell you that my trash was thrown in the street, who's going to come pick up my trash? Town employees, or are you going to contact the vendor and have the vendor come back and pick it up?
Yeah, I think that's a relationship issue that's determined when we sign the contract with them. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I
but-
think you had a comment. Did you want to
Well,
answer
I
that?
was just going to say, normally, I have seen that where, well, in most places that I've seen where the town does the customer service, when it comes to redressing something like that, it's always that they phone the contractor and say, we've received a complaint, we've logged it in our system, you've got this long to address it, and off they go.
And that's kind of what I was going back to Diane's point. If there's a misdelivery, they bend the mailbox, they spill the trash, it's more of a, somebody in Drenalo that's going to call and, know the person to address that, and then make sure that it gets taken care of within an appropriate amount of time, as opposed to just one of us calling individually now, and they're like, yeah, right,
Yeah.
when we get to it type of thing. Yep.
So if the contractor manages the billing, is there a live person that answers the phone about the billing and answers specific questions about it?
Well, right now, as it's written, they're the same it's bundled, so, we'll unbundle it and we'll clarify that the live person requirement applies both to billing and to customer service.
Mr. Mayor, I'm
Yes.
concerned that we have so much on the live people that will increase the cost of a monthly fee. And so I'm wondering if I agree with the customer service. I'm just cautious of saying it has to be live, because that will increase the cost of monthly fee. So that's what I have
Yeah.
concerns with.
Fair concern to have. I'm sure our consultant would say the same thing in terms of the more we lap on this thing by way of human capital, the higher the cost is going to be. I would argue, though, that typically when you have a financial question in terms of your bill, that leads more, that's likely to lead more to a human contact than if you have, if you have a mailbox hit or you have, trash spilled on the ground, that's likely to be the AI kind of response where you say, well, put this request in, type out your address and state your complaint, and we'll get back to you within 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever. So, if we decided to do customer service on those types of issues, rest assured, we're going to have a human body that's, a person that's answering those questions.
And the advantage of that is if it's one of our people, they're not having, they can work with whether it's a website or whatever it is, because it'll be one of our folks that actually is out doing it. So it might make it easier, but it will all add to cost. So having it broken, down on what the possibilities are, I guess would be important from that. Good so far? Go ahead.
All right, so proposed timeline and next steps. We have council resolution approval tonight, we hope. The RFP release date, the documents are effectively ready to go. I'm told that, subject to approval, it could take, 1 to 2 weeks, depending on advertising schedules and getting everything ready to be posted on the online bidding portal. But basically, that process would start right away and would be on the street soon.
On that point, most of all the major providers, they know to go to that watch and go to the portal, right? When RFPs hit the street, just like, asphalt, repaving and those types of things, right? They're up on that. We don't have to inform them, do we?
Well, we usually recommend doing so just in case. I mean, they are very on top of it usually, but, we usually also recommend just sending an email to
Sure.
the big players and making sure they all know about it.
Okay, thanks.
So then, basically, assuming that it's on the street, in a week or two, we're looking at a proposal submission deadline of August 6th, which would be about a month on the street, which is acceptable, for this type of service. And then we're allowing about 2 months for proposal evaluation, interviews, negotiations, and approval of award, if council proceeds to go that way. 2 weeks 2 months is achievable. It's you gotta move. It can easily take that long, but we are trying to. Given that there's a potential start date of July 1, 2025, we want to provide as much lead time as possible for people to procure vehicles, which is taking a long time still, so it's best if they can be kept within that time frame. As mentioned previously, there's also an ordinance to sort of finalize the start date and the rules of the program. Ideally, that would be done at the same time as the contract approval and everything else, but again, in the interest of maintaining that timeline, we've stated here that it could be allowed for the ordinance to take place after the contract has been awarded, with the understanding with the vendor that the ordinance would be in accordance with the contract, and align with its terms, just to allow them to get going on preparing for service delivery, recognizing it might take some time for council to work out all the details of passing the ordinance. And then our target service commencement date to coincide with the start of the next fiscal year. At this point, I think we're to questions.
Well, I think we took care of a lot of those as we were going, as we usually do. That's okay. Any other thoughts that came to mind that we should be considering? I think it's been pretty thoroughly, vetted from where we started and where this discussion went tonight.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor,
yes.
Just one comment, and again, this is, stay out of the weeds, but, this, one thing on the 96-gallon trash bins.
Mm-hmm.
Having 2 of those, I'm gonna have to move a car out of my garage. And the HOA requires these big
Oh,
trash bins
To be inside?
to be inside.
Ah.
If that's something being thought about, and noticing in my neighborhood, Quail Creek, a lot of folks either don't use recycling, which is their choice, or they use the smaller bins. And I know it's weeds and getting
Well, it's
down into
important
that,
though, yeah.
But it's something to think about. We have a lot of retirees that lugging a 96
Well, I know,
gallon bin around.
Shane will have to correct me, but I think recycling is mandatory if we go to this, if I remember correctly,
No,
but,
so twice a week is mandatory.
oh,
And typically municipalities handle that by doing once a week solid waste. And the state guidelines allow you to, in lieu of twice a week solid waste, once a week solid waste, and once a week recycling.
Ah.
So, I think, I know it's very popular, particularly in retirement communities. Up in Flagstaff, it was a big topic of discussion to roll out a different price point for a smaller bin,
mm-hmm.
something other than a 96 gallon container. What's your experience with that at this stage of the process? And I'm fairly confident that if we move forward with the contract, we could roll in implementation of different size containers. But it really gets kind of complicated because you're talking about a whole different price point. But I know that they make smaller containers.
Right.
Yeah, that is correct. They do make different size containers. It would definitely be a pretty significant change, to the RFP to do that. Often the different container sizes that they call it pay as you throw, the driver is actually, you'll try to drive waste reduction or reward people who generate less waste by, they can pay a lower rate for a smaller container. But yeah, I suppose there are other reasons that a person might want a smaller container if they truly don't need it. I would say, many places, one of each 96-gallon carts, that's quite a bit of capacity, and it's enough for most folks. And if people need more, they can pay an additional fee for another cart. But yeah, to go to smaller sizes, it increases the complexity of it, but it's definitely done in some places.
Right. Would you want to make a suggestion, Simon, on
I would almost be the opinion somebody chooses the size of the container they want and the price is the same.
Oh.
Yeah, if I don't need
The price stays the same, but if someone wants, because they don't have a big need, if you live by yourself or whatever, that you could get a smaller container that might fit in your garage, which might be a requirement, for like Quail Creek, but the price would still be the same. It'd just be a choice of what size can. That's Simon's suggestion.
Yeah, and that would be a lot easier for us to implement.
Right.
And stay in the course with this RFP,
Right. Does that sound doable?
Yeah.
Great. Thanks. Any other questions or suggestions for the RFP? You think we're good, Shane, from what you heard and have feedback?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Okay. No.
The next one is the intent.
Well, we just wanted to make sure that we had a pass with the council on the RFP before putting it out on the street. So knowing that it's all going to come back to you for consideration if we move forward or not, this is a big RFP, and we just wanted to make sure you had a look-see in terms of the salient points, and having your feedback tonight is really important for us. We'll go out with confidence and be able to bring some stuff back to you.
Okay.
this fall.
Yep. So,
Good.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion to adopt Resolution 2024-0800.
Well, I think I have to go to that officially because it's number 15. They separated them out.
Okay.
Is that right, John?
If the clerk could read 15?
Yes.
I don't know if there's any further discussion.
Correct. Madam Clerk, item number 15.
Adoption of Resolution 2024-0800, setting forth the town's intention for residential single and multifamily up to 4 units solid waste disposal services in the town of Sahuarita.
I think Councilmember Simon over here has got a suggestion.
There we go. Move Resolution 2024-0800.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Well, I've got 2 standing, 1 left, and I always commit at 8 o'clock. So let me take a 5-minute break, if that's okay with everybody, and then we'll come back and finish up the last couple of items. Unless we want to power through 2. Is that okay? Quick 5, everybody can use the bathroom? Yeah.
We have 3 items.
So I'm going to drag everybody back at 8:25.
Thank you.
You started it. We're talking about the bond. We're killing people.
I know, I think.
That's what we do for collections around here. Actually, I don't have a cousin in any, but I got an uncle. And it's an uncle. Is that going to give you the date? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, you could do this. You could do that. Yeah, I saw. More effort than anybody else. Telling you I did. The signs out there. I haven't seen those. Oh, did you? Okay. Well, the walk-in issue, I don't use all. We call. I was one. just an election issue, but even though they want to come for election. No, that's, I mean, you could have got it.
I have a friend, very savvy, he's using the internet, and he's got access to all these websites, and he created an electronic ad for how to do that, send it to his websites, and he gets 200 hits a day. So I want to see all the effort I put out and make a difference.
Oh, yeah. That'll make it sense. So you're keeping your spending under the $500? The job doesn't pay that. It's a labor of love. No, you guys are not doing our studies. Council's supposed to be. Yeah, well, we're supposed to do the same thing. Having competitive levies and paying the council. What you do with that is up to you. It's more challenging for the council because if you do a pay adjustment, it takes place at the tax council. It doesn't affect you.
What do you mean, 4 years from now?
No, it'd be, it's 2, with every election cycle, yeah.
So it'd be
Well, once it's on the website, professional website.
You took a trailer?
Unless you really
How much was it?
It's not just cheap.
No,
If everybody would take their seats, we'll get started. We're running from 5 minutes into 6-minute break, so. So we powered through the resolution. Madam Clerk, item number 16.
Discussion and possible adoption of resolution number 2024-0791, calling a utility franchise election to be held on November 5th, 2024, in conjunction with the town's special and general election, declaring gas and water franchises beneficial to the town of Sahuarita, designating the text of the questions authorizing the town of Sahuarita to enter into franchise agreements in full, to be voted on by the qualified electors of the town of Sahuarita pursuant to the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Dilly. I think you're going to chip this one off, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I already have a speaker ready.
Yes, we're ready to
Queued
go.
up. He's ready. It's like, what is that 5-minute break? I don't want that 5-minute break.
So, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Historically, we've only had one franchise agreement that we've had to watch and be aware of. Fortunately, that's been in with a great partner, a community partner, that's Southwest Gas. We have a representative here, Walter, who we all know and appreciate knowing as a friend and a partner, who will obviously have a few words to share with you. But just generally speaking, Southwest Gas's initiative to proactively refresh their franchise agreement with us really kind of opened up a bit of a window of opportunity for other utilities to consider doing the same. So in part with all of this tonight, we've got a number of utilities that have come forward saying, hey, yeah, we would be interested in considering a franchise agreement as well. Staff's here to answer any questions that you have about these franchise agreements, but we've got not only Southwest Gas, but we have Global Water and their two companies that they've acquired, and we have Community Water. We did reach out to Trico as well as Rancho Sahuarita Water, and it was just, the timing just was really difficult. And so for a number of different reasons that those two didn't play out. However, they continue to be on the table, and we'll continue to press for it. We think that franchise agreements, generally speaking, help in a number of different ways. But where they really shine is creating the rules, the playbook for how utilities and the municipality interact within the town's rights of ways. So on our road infrastructure, that's the primary vehicle for these utilities to get from point A to point B. And sometimes there's new projects, sometimes there's maintenance, and sometimes that maintenance is on the utility side, sometimes it's on the town side. But how do we work together in those rights of ways to manage and coordinate efforts? And so that's where that's where the franchise agreements really become helpful. And I would argue that because of it, it actually ultimately makes the cost of providing those services cheaper to the end user, because that coordination is in place and identified on the front end through these agreements. So that said, I'll turn some time over to, or back. I'll turn it back to you, Mayor, and you can handle this however you want.
No.
But that's my two words.
No, absolutely. And as you mentioned, Shane, I know a couple are willing and wanting to go in this November, and others may go in the future. But Walter, welcome.
Well, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Dilly, and assembled staff, and the citizenry of Sahuarita, it's a pleasure to be here. And just briefly before I get into the franchise, the members up here have already heard some of the story, but I have a deep affection for the town of Sahuarita. Before I started doing public affairs work for Southwest Gas, I lived in Yuma for a couple of years. And before leaving to go to Yuma, working with Bob Sharp and Associates to install the gas infrastructure for Rancho Sahuarita was the last major project that I was able to help bring to fruition. And I've always been really proud about that. And I just really enjoy your community. You've got a great town. As Shane has mentioned, this is just a modernization and a renewal of a previous 25-year franchise agreement that the citizenry approved previously. There are no real major changes to this franchise agreement as far as the terms go. This will not have a raise in the gas rates or in the gas fees. As Shane indicated, this really gives you the outline of the relationship and the way it works between the natural gas utility and the town. But I would like to note for members of council and everyone here, this does not prevent mayor and council from imposing future ordinances at your pleasure, whatever they are. If they're okay by the law, Southwest Gas will agree to those as well, because we think you have a solid council that will make good decisions. In addition to that, Southwest Gas will still be attaining permits for all of the work that we would be doing in your right-of-way, with the exception of emergency work, and we have provisions in there to work around that too. I guess I'd just close off by saying that we're very proud to serve this community, and in addition to just taking care of the citizens and trying to provide the best service that we can, we'll be taking part to help to pay for part of this election. If it turns out that it's just us on the ballot with the city, we would split that by half. If there's other private utilities, we would offer to do a fair split on that. So really, that's all I have for mayor and council, but I make myself available for questions if you should have any about anything having to do with the franchise.
You have any questions for Walter? And I know when we've met, it was more about the fact that the rules of the road, so to speak. So when Walter's not here and Tom's not here and Shane's not here, if it isn't the same relationship, this just kind of protects everybody, is the way I
It
kind of
does.
look at it.
It gives the basic rules. It talks about the restoration of right-of-way when we do go in to do some work. It gives the basic four corners of how the town and the utility work with each other, in addition to how we collect and remit our payments. All that is included in the franchise. I should mention, in addition to this, this law is somewhat dated and it's very prescriptive. Southwest Gas will be advertising in the local newspaper the entirety of this agreement in both English and Spanish for 30 days prior to the actual election. It's just a kind of a holdover from a previous time, but we do, it's in there so that way the citizenry can be completely informed about what's going on. So everyone, all of your constituents will have a chance to look at it.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Just so, a point that Walter made that I think is worth bringing forward. So the council earlier this year, so this is just more information for the general public. The council earlier this year adopted, I think it was resolution, it could have been ordinance, AC, but this is when you guys decided to increase the utility tax.
Right.
But you also did it in such a way that if you had a franchise tax, part of it's in lieu of that. So when Walter says, hey, this franchise agreement doesn't represent a rate increase to the utility user, that would go for, all of these other utilities that are also, on the desk for your consideration
Yeah, I
tonight.
don't know if it's the correct term, but there's an offset, built into that.
It's kind of an in lieu of, if you
In
do
lieu
the
of.
franchise agreement, you don't do the additional 2%.
Right.
Or if you do the 2%, you don't do the franchise agreement, or the franchise fee, I'm sorry. So
Right.
that, it's kind of, anyway, so
Yep.
yeah.
We preserve that language through the franchise that the mayor and council have already adopted, so that was reflected
you.
in the franchise.
If there are no more questions?
Yeah, one comment, and I'm certainly in agreement with this, but as we heard earlier this evening, we're going to have a saturation on the ballot. This is one more thing there, and you just addressed that you'll be publishing, is I'm sure, maybe for the attorney, the town cannot promote this, similar to the bond. So how do we get the message out to get the voters to approve this?
Yep, Walter might be able to address that.
I can tell you, I've been in contact with, just said hello to Randy Graff, the director of your local Chamber of Commerce. He's agreed to write a letter that would go out in the publicity pamphlet for publication. Generally speaking, there's only been one franchise in the entire state that has ever failed at the election box, and it's not lost on me because that was within this region, and it was rather recently. But Southwest Gas has enjoyed election results mostly in the 80s to 90% for most of our franchise agreements.
Councilmember Davis, I will also note that in our conversations leading up to tonight's possible action by the council with these various utilities, they also view this as an opportunity for them to get their own word and stories out about their utility and why there's a benefit for these franchise agreements. So while after tonight's action, if you approve this, you're right, staff's role largely is just information. We can't advocate. The utility companies can, advocate, and really, it's up to them to carry a lot of that load.
Yep. And we had that conversation, and it was really because we were, I think, so far down the road in Southwest Gas. It was your druthers, right, to go with this November
It
election.
was. We would prefer to go ahead and go on this ballot, regardless of it being somewhat congested, as you did mention. Mr. Mayor, Councilman Davis, I apologize. I left out one major part of this. We will be hosting a web page that will be dedicated to the town of Sahuarita franchise, and we will be actively driving people there so if they seek more information as well. Again, these generally pass with a very high degree of approval, but it's not lost on us that in a crowded ballot these can get lost.
And Mayor, remember that the county elections department puts out a publicity pamphlet for
Right.
all of the ballot measures, so it would include all 4 of these franchises in printed in full again in English and Spanish, plus the bond, plus and any pro-con statements that are put into there. So it is, people voters should be made aware or should be aware of the local ballot measures.
Measures,
The
right.
town's ballot measures,
Right,
if they're paying attention.
right. Thanks. Any other questions? Whoop, Shane?
Just one note, and that's that while we do have 4 different franchise agreements up for your consideration tonight, all but one of them has actually signed a, what's it called?
Cost-sharing agreement.
Cost-sharing agreement. I think it's Community Water that has yet to get that in front of their board, but are planning to do that. So I just wanted to put that on the table that, I mean, if we don't get the cost-sharing agreement from them,
They won't be on there.
they may not make it on that ballot. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt resolution 2024-0791.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Walter. You can stay for 2 more items if you'd like, but not a requirement. Madam Clerk, item number 17.
Public hearing and recommendation to the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses and Control regarding an application for a Series 9 liquor store liquor license by Speedway number 2960, located at 795 West Via Rancho Saharita, Saharita, Arizona, 85629, within the incorporated limits of the town of Saharita.
Thank you. And Ms. Rhodes, Leah Rhodes, our Deputy Clerk, will present this item. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members, before you tonight is a Series 9 liquor store license application that was submitted by Andrea Lukowitz for Speedway number 2960, located at 795 West Via Rancho Cerrita. Ms. Lukowitz has submitted a Series 9 liquor store license application, which is a quota license available only through the liquor license lottery or for purchase on the open market. Once issued, the liquor license is transferable from person to person or location to location within the same county. It allows the liquor store retailer to sell all types of spirituous liquor, only in the original unbroken package, to be taken away from the retailer's premises and consumed off the premises. Although the applicant is not present tonight, they wanted me to convey to the council that the spirituous liquor will be displayed behind the front counter. The required notice was posted for 20 days. The town received no comments on the issuance of the license. All fees have been paid, and the application was reviewed by town staff, and there were no objections to the issuance of the license. This evening, we are asking council to make a recommendation of approval or disapproval of the license application to the Arizona Department of Liquor License and Control.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Leah? No? This does require a public hearing, so I'll open up the public hearing and see if staff wants to comment, because that's all we have left. Seeing no movement we have one non-staff member. I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion at this time.
Yeah, this is always appropriate. Okay. I move to submit to the ADLLC a recommendation of approval.
You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks. Motion carries unanimously. Madam Clerk, item number 18.
Discussion and possible action to enter into the Kroger Settlement Agreement, a national opioid settlement agreement, by authorizing town staff to submit the participation form releasing all claims against Kroger in exchange for opioid remediation monies. The council may vote to discuss this matter in executive session pursuant to ARS Section 38-431-03A3 and 4.
Mr. Dilly, I think I have you down as starting it, and if John wants to weigh in, or if John wants to take it.
I'm happy to take it. This is just another settlement in what's called the One Arizona Agreement,
Yep.
which all the money goes to the state, and 57% of it goes to counties and municipalities, so proportionate to population. I believe Sahuarita opted out of the group spending, the Pima County group spending, so the money comes directly to the town. I think it's Pima County, Tucson, South Tucson, and Oro Valley are all part of the collective that uses the money collectively, and I believe Marana and Sahuarita are the two that get direct paid. I think we looked today, there was a public records request. I think the town's received so far 140,000, give or take, so far. Is that right? Is that number right? Yeah, I think. And so, and then the One Arizona agreement has a litany of allowed uses, but it's all intended to mitigate the impact of opioid abuse.
Right, and could be working with the police department,
Yes.
education
Educational,
organizations.
police, those kinds of things.
Right.
It's a long list, but it's all in the same concept. So there's really zero downside to approving this. Again, the council's approved prior settlements
Right.
with some of the manufacturers. This is a retailer, obviously, it's Kroger.
Right.
So it's the Kroger pharmacies, the Fry's pharmacies. And we can anticipate that there'll be other
Others.
settlements coming down, like, for retailers like Walmart or Walgreens or
Sure.
or CVS or whatever.
Great, thank you. Any questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, move to approve the Kroger Company settlement agreement.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
That's what you call a presentation.
And item number 19 is no more further business. We're adjourned. Enjoy the summer. I'm sure I'll see all of you, or most of you, at July 4th and all kinds of other events, but the next meeting will be in August. Thanks.
I second.
Thank you. It's always enjoyable.